There's few things that I have a disdain for more than when a manager says this is what makes sense. I don't like it when a fighter says it, but a fighter who's willing to step in there, willing to go through the training camp, make the weight, get on the airplane, walk in front of the world, the fighter has the right and gets a little bit of slack if he's willing to go and back it up. When a manager talks about what makes sense, it's infuriating to me. There's not a manager in this sport who's ever made $1 himself. In all fairness, you attach to somebody, he goes out and earns money, he brings it to you. It's very much a pimp-ho relationship. There is not a manager that then transfers from a manager to an executive or to a promoter who actually can go and run an event and find a way to monetize it because they just don't know what they're doing. So when they talk about what makes sense is whoever on the second floor at the UFC calls you and tells you they want to do. People that are professionals and paid and study this and have to bring in an ROI. What they decide makes sense is right. And it's there that's risking it. It's their job on the line. It's their money. So you have a pretty good indicator that they will let you know what makes sense. Now, Masvidal, what's he going to do? Masvidal is a top 3 star in the sport, period. The sport's 3 biggest stars in this order are Conor McGregor, George Masvidal, Nate Diaz. Nick has a chance to break into that. Possibly he's already there, but he's been removed too long. I can't put him on the list. Masvidal has a very good opportunity to be fighting for a world championship. You must understand that. Masvidal has no opportunity to fight for a championship if Kamaru Usman keeps the belt. This is relevant. As you're putting your pieces together of what should George do next, they look very different based on the outcome of Covington and Kamaru. Very different. Masvidal's simply not going to be fighting Kamaru again. They're not going to go to a third fight. Not going to happen. Any scenario. No matter who Masvidal fights and beats in between, he's not going to get back to a title shot if it's Kamaru Usman. Broad stroke, but correct. If Covington beats Usman, Kamaru could go right into it. Kamaru and Colby have to match up. But it's just like Leon and Masvidal. Like there's some things that have to happen. That has to happen. That will happen. Unless Masvidal takes his ball and goes home, which in all fairness is going to happen someday, and he's earned the right to do. But Masvidal's team is talking about they'll do anything. Anything. No problem fighting anybody if it keeps them on a path to a title. I love that. To imagine that Masvidal is still hungry with all the success that he's had. He is the sport's second biggest star. That is a massive claim. It would not matter what sport you can. It would not matter if we're talking basketball, baseball, soccer, tennis. If you're the second biggest draw in an entire sport in the world, massive claim. But with that claim, he can do whatever he wants. In all fairness, Masvidal can go and sell out an arena against anybody. It's the same thing that Nate can do. It's the same thing that Conor can do. Those guys are on an island to themselves. There's not another person you could say that about. It's very rare. And it's very rare that a human has power and doesn't wield it. It sounds as though, according to Masvidal's management, I believe it was Malky specifically, it sounds like they're not going to wield it. It sounds as though that dirty competitor is still with inside Masvidal, and he wants to get back to his lifelong dream of being champion. That's awesome. I love that. Very different paths. If you're being strategic, it's very different paths. I don't know if there's ever been a time that's more important for Masvidal to get a win than next, because if he wins his next fight and Colby wins, very easy to see those two competing for the championship. Very easy. A lot of moving parts. If Kamaru Usman goes down, I would imagine Kamaru now has a great claim to say, well, I'm the number one contender. I don't disagree. I'm not telling you how this is going to play out. But when you sit down to those discussions in those fighter meetings, you have 3 or 4 ideas that you then deduce down to one. You mark it, you move on, and you never look back. That's how it works. Usman, with a victory, gets to be one of those very few arguments that comes to the table. With Colby, Colby's got, right, there's some moving parts. It changes. So it's very important that whatever play Masvidal makes next is someone that he says is favorable. Look, the Leon fight, very hard fight. Massive, but very hard. Gilbert Burns, very hard. Massive fight, very difficult. So there needs to be a little strategy here. Masvidal needs to make sure he keeps getting the attention of Colby. Whether he hates Colby or vice versa, those two could be partners. And it's important if you're talking about what makes sense. It's important, right? You've heard the old expression, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Very important that Masvidal has the big picture here, that he sees this. I don't like this guy. Talking about Colby, I don't like this guy. But I need him. What Masvidal's going to do next. A lot of moving parts, a lot of balls up in the air. But what Masvidal's going to do next, and the fact that he does it successfully, at no point in his career has this been more paramount than right now.